What happens when human power stands against divine authority? The Egyptian magicians, Jannes and Jambres, are enigmatic figures mentioned in the Bible, known for their confrontation with Moses and Aaron during the Great Exodus. These sorcerers, wielding their mystical arts, sought to challenge the miraculous signs performed by God's chosen servants. When Moses turned his staff into a serpent and struck the Nile, transforming its waters into blood, these magicians replicated the wonders through their secret arts. But was their power truly equal to God's, or was it merely an illusion designed to deceive? Though their names are not explicitly mentioned in the book of Exodus, later biblical and extra-biblical texts identify them as Jannes and Jambres. In Exodus 7:11, Pharaoh calls upon his magicians and wise men, who use their enchantments to mimic the first few plagues. Their ability to replicate these divine acts suggests they were highly skilled in the occult, possibly drawing upon demonic forces or deeply entrenched Egyptian mystical traditions. The great river Nile shimmered under the burning Egyptian sun, a lifeline to the kingdom that Pharaoh ruled with an iron fist. It was in this land of pyramids and gods of stone that Moses and Aaron stood before the throne of the mighty king, armed with nothing but a staff and the word of the Lord. The moment was tense, the air thick with defiance. Pharaoh, the embodiment of Egypt's power, stared at them with hardened eyes. He had no reason to believe in the God of the Hebrews, no cause to yield to this unseen power. But the Lord had sent Moses with a sign. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. Exodus 7 verse 11. Pharaoh, unwilling to concede to the power of the Almighty, summoned his court magicians. Jannes and Jambres, though their names are not mentioned in the Exodus account, are later revealed in 2 Timothy 3 verse 8. Now, as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds, reprobate concerning the faith. These men were the embodiment of opposition, not merely against Moses, but against the very truth of God. They came forward, clad in the garments of their craft, with eyes that gleamed with arrogance. With words whispered to the dark arts, they cast down their rods, and to the astonishment of all, they too became serpents. But this was no true miracle, only a deception, a mimicry of divine power. The court was awed, the onlookers gasped, yet in that moment, the supremacy of God was revealed. For Aaron's rod, a simple wooden staff in the hands of a servant of the Lord, swallowed up their serpents. It was a dramatic and undeniable sign. God's power is never matched by the works of darkness. Still, Pharaoh hardened his heart, refusing to believe. Again and again, the magicians sought to replicate the miracles that Moses and Aaron performed by God's hand. When the Nile was turned to blood, they too performed a similar illusion. When frogs came up and covered the land, they imitated it. But as the plagues increased in severity, their power reached a limit. When the dust of the ground became lice by the finger of God, the magicians tried, but failed. Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. Exodus 8 verse 19. Here, the truth became undeniable. These men, skilled in the occult, were forced to admit that they had encountered something greater than their enchantments. Their magic had boundaries, their illusions could only stretch so far. And yet, Pharaoh remained unmoved. His heart, like stone, resisted the truth even when his own sorcerers recognized the power of God. The confrontation between Moses and the magicians of Egypt is not merely an ancient tale, but a warning for all generations. Just as Pharaoh's magicians opposed Moses, so too does the world resist the truth today. There are many counterfeits in our time. False doctrines, deceptive signs, philosophies that mimic godliness yet lack its true power. The Apostle Paul warned of such things, saying in 2 Timothy 3 verse 5, "Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away." False miracles, deceptive teachings, and the allure of worldly wisdom continue to challenge the faith of God's people. Just as Jannes and Jambres sought to discredit Moses, many today seek to undermine the truth of Christ. But their power is fleeting. Their enchantments, like mist before the morning sun, will ultimately vanish before the supremacy of God's word. The story of Jannes and Jambres teaches us to discern between true power and counterfeit wonders. In a world filled with distractions, it is easy to be swayed by what appears supernatural, what seems wise, or what offers temporary solutions. Yet like Aaron's rod devouring the serpents of the magicians, the truth of God always prevails. Are we grounded in His word? Do we recognize falsehood when it presents itself? Are we seeking after signs and wonders, or are we rooted in the faith that does not need illusions to believe? Jesus warned against a generation that seeks after signs rather than trusting in the revealed truth of God. Matthew 12, verse 39. As history unfolded, Pharaoh and his magicians were ultimately humiliated. The plagues escalated beyond their control, and Egypt lay in ruin. The power they boasted in was no match for the living God. Likewise, all that opposes the truth will one day be brought low. As Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 10, verse 4-5, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God." The spiritual battle did not end with Egypt. As the people of Israel entered the promised land, new enemies of the faith arose. Among them were the prophets of Asherah, servants of Queen Jezebel, who sought to lead Israel into idolatry and away from the true God. Their story intertwines with that of the infamous prophets of Baal, and their confrontation with the prophet Elijah on Mount Carmel would be a defining moment in Israel's spiritual history. Just as the magicians of Egypt stood against Moses, the prophets of Asherah stood against Elijah. But just as God's power prevailed in Egypt, so too would He demonstrate His might against the forces of idolatry. In our next discussion, we will uncover the depths of their deception, the influence of Jezebel's reign, and how the Lord answered their rebellion with fire from heaven. Stay watchful, stay discerning, and above all, remain faithful to the God whose power is without equal. The battle between truth and deception rages on, but the victory belongs to the Lord.